All right, we are here with Jimmy O'Brien, a.k.a. John Boy, YouTube sensation, baseball Twitter sensation. We're talking 920,000 subscribers on YouTube, 306.8 thousand followers on Twitter, host of the Talkin' Yankees podcast, host of the Talkin' Baseball podcast, and now he joins us on Locked on Tigers for an interview. Jimmy, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for that introduction. That was pretty cool.
Oh, no problem. Well, you're John Boy. We do our research here. I make sure to look up to make sure exactly down to the last decimal point how many subs you have. And with all content creators, and I asked Foolish Baseball this, and I asked Draftneck Mark this, and I'm going to ask you, I feel like there's a moment where things just pop. And I want to know, what was that moment for you where things went from, you know what, this is a nice, fun little hobby to, man, this might be something that I can do professionally.
Yeah, it's like an interesting for me to try and figure that out because it was in 2017. It was just a hobby, and then I got an offer to do it full time. I got like a small investment from a buddy who thought he was dreaming big for me, you know, and then maybe that was it, and then I was doing it, but I wasn't making any money. I had like an investment to live off to try and become profitable and do well. So we did that for a while. And then strategically, we built up the Yankees stuff for a couple of years. And then in 2019, we said, all right, we have to slowly pivot here to all of baseball. Otherwise, this isn't going to go anywhere. But we wanted to build up the Yankees contingent first as kind of like our home base. So when we expanded, there was like something to fall back on, or people that had been with us for 2 years in the Yankees coverage would advocate for us when we went into other markets. Like, yeah, no, I like those guys. They're funny or they're good or whatever. So it was really in 2019 when I started doing breakdowns for like everyone else. It was actually a AJ Hinch breakdown with Ron Kulpa. Kulpa told him I can do whatever I want. I think that was the first one I did that wasn't a Yankees, and it was like, breakdown, which is a satirical name. But I went to sleep, and then I think on Twitter it had over 1 million views. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I had DMs from people that were like, hey, do this more. Like people I respect, people I didn't know that would reach out. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I was like, I can do that more. And then by like August of 2019, the YouTube had started rolling in, and went kind of that Google AdSense, like that, just, YouTube money, not like we weren't selling the ads. It was just rolling in. And that was when I saw what my buddy had seen when he invested, where I was like, oh, okay, I get how this works. I get that, like, we can make money. And then I was like, oh, we can make good money. Oh, this, so I'd say in the middle of 2019, when we expanded to do breakdowns and do podcasts on all MLB, but we needed that base first,
Yeah, for sure. In hindsight, how grateful are you that Ron Kulpa decided to have a little ego trip there in I think it was May or April of 2019 when him and Hinch got into it. Yeah,
you could read his lips. Like someone else could read. Someone else had tweeted it, and they could read his lips because you could just read it perfectly. Like it was easy. But then I watched and I could read a couple more things that he was saying and how bizarre it was. So yeah, thanks, Ron Kulpa. We actually we've since had an ex-umpire, Dale Scott, on the show, and he's the first openly gay umpire in MLB. And he said he had told a really nice story about Ron Kulpa, which changed my mind on him. So,
well, that actually leads me into my next question, which is that, you make no bones about the fact that you're a Yankees fan, the same way that I will not apologize for being a Tigers fan, even though sometimes maybe I should. But my question is, now that you've grown in popularity, is it harder to be critical of certain players? Cause man, that guy might watch the video. That guy might listen to a podcast. Is it tougher now than it was, say, 3-4 years ago?
Well, yeah, but I think it's really good that it is, because I just didn't know people were listening back then. And I never want someone to be hurt by something I said. So it's actually a great reminder and I tell this to everyone we bring on, like, don't burn bridges that haven't been built yet. I got really lucky that I didn't do that. It's a good reminder to have, like, be critical of the play, not the player. And you hear a lot of professional broadcasters say that and stuff, but we're not supposed to be, non-biased play-by-play guys. We're supposed to be fan media where we have like frustration. So I think there also is a limit where, some players have to accept like, hey, this is how fans talk. So, if you're really going to get upset because I'm screaming like, you fucking idiot. I don't know if you swear on here. You freaking
No,
idiot.
well, I have in the past, so you're good.
Okay. Like, you idiot. Like that's how fans act. Like, that's what this is. And there's no hiding that. But yeah, I think there's definitely like ways that I went about videos in the past that I think I just changed the tone a little bit. But I also think like, professional athletes, they are that locker room environment up until they're 30 years old. They bust balls and they get on each other. And that's kind of where I'd rather it come from than like any place of malice or intent.
Yeah, I mean, you've always walked that line. I think that sometimes when I go back and watch, videos I made when I was 20, acting like, game 45 against the Mariners was game 7 of the World Series. And you're like, all right, maybe ease up on the throttle a little bit. You got to be able to find that balance. You brought up the lip reading. Has that just been a thing you've always had? Was that a skill that you developed? Where did that come from? Because you nail it like 99.9% of the time, dude.
Kind of always had it. I don't really know where it comes from. I think context looms large. You have to kind of like watch the situation and think, what could he be saying here? And then you can kind of lean in. If sometimes people tweet at me, it's just like a 10-second shot, and I have no context. I have no idea what they could possibly be talking about. And then I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think, the context helps, but that's something whenever I was like in high school, college, when I would watch games with my dad would always rewind the TiVo or whatever, like bleep, bleep, bleep. What'd he say, Jim? And then I'd be able to figure it out. Sometimes it's hard. Some coaches are really hard. Some coaches are really easy. The Texas coach, Woodward, super easy. Bob Melvin, I think, for the A's, or no, Gardenhire for Gardenhire.
Yeah, he always had him.
Incredibly hard. I remember like, and the lip reading ones take forever because people expect me to get it right. So I like really try to, sometimes if I can't figure it out, it's either like, all right, I'm not posting this video because people will be upset I couldn't figure it out, or I got to spend 3 hours like zooming in, mouthing it along with them, trying to get it. And I remember spending so long on a Gardenhire one. And then eventually I think I went and I listened to his post-game press conference to see what words he was using to describe the ejection. And then I was just searching for those words, and you find one and you can put the whole puzzle together.
He had an interesting cadence and way of speaking. Like everything he said kind of was the same, and kind of very slow
like
delivery.
A lot, yeah.
I mean, very very nice guy, good soundbite, but I could see why he may have been a little bit difficult. And have you ever had a player, now that you've grown, have you had a player or a coach reach out to you and be like, "Man, that wasn't what I said," or you misquoted me or something like that?
No, I've had a lot reach out and say I got it exactly right.
Good. All right. Good. And on the flip side, because you do sometimes catch these guys in like vulnerable moments where they're furious, where they're about to, go to fisticuffs. Have you ever had a guy reach out and be like, "Man, you kind of put me on blast there. Like I got a brand to maintain here."
No, again, I think I tried to, the worst one was probably Jared Hughes. I really kind of made fun of him for running in from the bullpen and then getting out of breath, and everyone loves it. And I kind of won't go back and watch that because I think my tone was a little harsher than I would have liked it. I call everyone a dumb idiot. So like, if you're in my path, like if you're my brother or my sister or my dog or my friend, like dumb idiot is so loose for me. But I think I was calling him like, you big dumb idiot. And I think he might not know, like people don't know that I use that very loosely. I got in a lot of, one time I just use the word idiot very loosely and other people don't. So like that one, I kind of felt bad. I maybe putting him on blast, but he had a quote saying like, yeah, it upset him for a little bit, but then he was like, whatever. It's awesome. It's funny, blah, blah, blah. I think that you've built up enough of a following now that like maybe 2 years ago it was different, but you're at a point now where people know like your sense of humor and understand like it's all meant to be taken kind of in good fun. You've talked about how difficult it was sometimes to do the lip reading stuff. Was last year, despite how insane it was and how off the wall it was last year easier because you had more hot mics, because you had fewer fans in the stands? Like was that actually kind of a dream for Jimmy O'Brien that like, oh God, thank God I don't have to read lips with 30,000 fans screaming in the stand? Yeah, because the lip readings take forever. So it was kind of like, all right, well, no one's expecting that. I can kind of just make jokes here and there. But it is fun when you see it and you can like read the lips perfectly and you're like, oh, okay, it's kind of like I have info not everyone is privy to, but I'm happy to share it.
For
So,
sure.
but no, last year it was fun. There were still some big moments and stuff and crazy plays. So, and there was even probably still some lip reading. I remember the Braves manager Snitker he quoted himself. He said in the media afterwards, like, I covered my mouth so John Boy couldn't read my lips or something like that. And then I made a video just joking about reading his lips.
I mean, that's got to be
like
so satisfying too, to know that like a manager of the year, a guy who's in the midst of a pennant chase, is actually thinking about you while he's. I mean, that's gotta feel good, right?
Well, especially he feels like he skews old school, like he wouldn't be in tune with social media and dumb videos. So that was cool. Yeah, but every time someone reaches out, and it's getting, more common now where they know who I am, and I'm really aware of it when I do these college breakdowns that I'm doing right now during the off season because, I did one on, I don't want to get his name. It's Braden or Brandon Olthoff. I forget his name, from Tulane. And I was like, oh, let me see if this dude I Googled how do you pronounce his name, and his Twitter came up, and I clicked his Twitter and he followed me, and I was like, oh, okay. Cause it was about, he got like caught for pine tar, and I was like, man, I hope I don't put this guy on blast. But it's such a good video. And that video got I don't know, I think it got millions of views on 3 different platforms. So eventually I DM'd him and I was like, hey, I hope you're getting more love than hate for this. And he was like, no, dude, it's awesome. That's great. So, and a lot of the college players, I just did one today, and then it goes out, and then the players tag each other in response. And I'm like, and those are amateur players. So I'm much more aware of, oh, they know who I am. I don't, I'm not trying to blow anyone up.
Well, the Tulane guy, that was the guy that they tried to bust for pine tar who didn't. Yeah. Man, I think you helped his stock because me and you noticed the same thing, which was his stuff was great. I was watching that and being like, man, this is a 2-seamer that's moving like a foot in the zone. This guy's nasty. Like, I think that you may have ended up
Braden.
Yeah.
Braden. So I wanted to DM him before I made the video because I knew he followed me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say like, hey, can you give me I'm making a breakdown on you. Can you give me the insight? But I didn't want him to reply and be like, dude, don't make it. Like, I don't want to be in the pine tar world where like people are mad at me or like he's like, dude, don't make it because I was using it, but I don't want to get I didn't want him to respond and say no. But it turns out he tweeted afterwards that his glove had like an air pocket bubble and he was just pushing it like a little big league, like for good luck in between pitches. I was like, oh shit, I should have DM'd you because that's an awesome tidbit I could have put into the video.
And I guess, and I didn't have this question written down, but has there been a video that you haven't made because maybe there was something that you weren't comfortable talking about, or there was something that maybe a player said that you didn't want to discuss?
Yeah, not a video, but like there was I can only think of one time where there was a player, I think he was on the Dodgers at the time, 2 years ago, who yelled something from the bench, and I was like, that probably gets him suspended. Yeah. So I just sat on it.
Yeah, I wondered about that because especially now in the age of hot mics. I mean, we saw, 4 years ago, Kevin Pillar get busted. I think Jason Mott struck him out in a quick pitch and he said something that got him suspended and should have gotten him suspended.
Yeah. It was the same word if anyone's interested.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being open about that. That's kind of what I thought, but transitioning here and bringing this kind of around to the Tigers, because the Tigers now have AJ Hinch as their manager, and it's been over a year.
By you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. The Tiger, and it's been over a year now since the Astros punishment was handed out, and we've gone through the pandemic, a 60-game season, Manfred putting his foot in his mouth a million times, the piece of metal comment. We've crowned a World Series champion. So much has changed. Has your opinion about the scandal and the handling of that scandal changed in the last year, or is it kind of where it was at this point in 2020?
I'm kind of over it. It's become such easy fodder for everyone to get the same joke off that I think it's more annoying than anything. I can't read the same joke. And people tag me in the joke a lot because they associate me with it. So I get that, and I appreciate that they think of me. But like, I'm just kind of over the whole thing. But as far as punishment, no, it's still stupid. I mean, they didn't investigate anything.
Mhm.
I had there. All they did was open their inbox. I mean, I seen the complaints and the pictures that got sent and the videos that got sent from teams to the league office saying like, hey, can you look into this?
Hmm.
And Brian Cashman thanked me. It was like, we could just never get it. We
Hmm.
on a radio show, he's like, thanks, John Boy. Like, we could just never get the smoking gun. And all I did was read the same article everyone else did, but I have a lane where I make videos that go with news, and it blew up. But the investigation, I mean, I don't know what else. I'm not going to say like they definitely should have got this. They definitely should have got this. All I know is they didn't investigate anything.
Right.
All they did was say, hey, there's video of the banging, and you guys cannot deny that because it's very obvious and true that you use the banging scheme. We'll give you what's the word? We'll give you immunity if you admit to that and anything else you were doing. And the players just said, okay, we admit to that, but we didn't do anything else. And then the league said, okay, we believe you. It's like, what? Like, that was all. So like, it wasn't an investigation at all. So that's still the disappointing thing, but I'm ready to just move on altogether.
It was a difficult thing, and I think I was in denial about it for a long time because I loved watching those Astros teams, and I hate seeing cheating in baseball, and I pushed back against it. I'm going to wait for the facts, and it got to a point where I'm like, man, it's hard for me to defend you or to defend them, obviously, and you became, kind of on accident, the unofficial poster boy for that scandal because people saw you in the Yankee cap and you were on the Michael Kay show, which I love. And you were talking about this and you said, man, I didn't report anything. What you did was you took written, the written word and essentially translated it into video. And then all of a sudden you're on Michael Kay show. You're on Boomer and Geo. You're on ESPN. Are you still surprised by the fact that you got caught up in that whirlwind, or were you thinking at the time like, well, Yankee fan, I kind of get it?
No, Yankee fans one thing, but it's more it should be taught of how this generation and today people take in media. The Athletic is written word behind a paywall. I made a 2-minute video that is me telling the story with my voice. They can hear it and then showing them the matching data that they can see with their eyes. So I'm getting all senses in play. I'm walking through it step by step. They don't have to pay to see it. They don't have to read it. And it's only 2 minutes long. So it's just much more digestible. So I'm happy that that's the lane that we found. And that's the lane that like we built our audience to have. So when I posted, I wasn't some anonymous account or some really small account posting one-off video. There was some push from our audience that knew who I was and that, I cover baseball and all that. So, and then people just started coming to me with more stuff and I was obsessed. I love scandal. I love like researching and like diving deep into things and like just getting lost in not conspiracy theories, but just like theories, I guess. So I had a lot of fun with it, maybe too much fun. But a lot of people emailed me that were like, wouldn't talk themselves and were like, hey, also this, check this out, look into this.
Was there any part of you that got enjoyment out of the fact that it was a team that had knocked the Yankees out of the postseason 3 times?
Well, no, I don't care about that. Yankees lost because their own doings, maybe in 2017, but still in 18-19, the Yankees weren't going to do anything in the World Series anyway. I don't think they were gassed and they had no pitching, but their fan base sure was annoying. I liked the Astros. I loved watching Altuve. I loved watching Verlander. And like, even before the scandal, Astros fans were just so obnoxious. And I would always say like, I like the Astros. I do not like their fans. And that was before any of this happened. So I wish it was another team. So there wasn't the Yankees aspect. I wish it was like the Diamondbacks.
Yeah,
Or
that's what I was wondering is if it was the team I was going to use was the Mariners, like if it was just some rain or the
yeah,
Tigers. Now the fact is, I don't. If the Tigers were stealing signs, I don't think they would have lost 114 games 2 years ago. But
yeah.
still, yeah. No, I mean, I wondered about that too, and I appreciate you being honest and bringing it back around to Detroit. Were you fine with the Tigers hiring Hinch, or are you one of the people who are like, man, he should have had a longer suspension, he shouldn't be in the league, or have
Should
you?
have had a suspension. They I don't know why they worded it the way they did, where these guys got suspended for through the end of the 2020 World Series
Mhm.
when Domingo Germán, granted, I'm not advocating for Domingo Germán to not be suspended or to not serve his time, but his was worded as 80 games. So even though, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah, and they had what for Hinch? Was it full calendar year the second the World Series ends? So,
the World Series ended through they call it like the championship series, which no one calls it besides like the commissioner. It's so weird. But yeah, they should have been 160 games. They should have to sit out 162 games that are being played that they can't partake. They only served 60 of a season that was like they just sat at home and didn't have to go through the rigors of the travel and the COVID and all that stuff. So I think they had a much better time than a lot of managers who managed. So yeah, I think if MLB would do it again, I would hope they would change the wording of the suspension.
I mean,
like 162 games, not till the end of the World Series.
It's hard for me to argue against that. Obviously, as a fan of a team that's lost 98, 114, and then a top 5 pick, I'm completely fine with going out and getting a World Series winning manager. But I'm at a point now where I mean, that is indefensible. And I can't, like, the fumbling of that investigation, sadly, open things up to something that's probably going to happen again. And as much as I like Hinch, and I'm glad Hinch is the manager in Detroit, his Tom Verducci interview didn't like do him a whole lot of favors in regards to putting a bookend on that scandal. I mean, he was asked about the buzzers and he said, "Hey, the MLB did their investigation and we're moving on," which right away, people are like, well, he never really denied it, which makes.
I like people think a lot of Astros fans think I invented the buzzers theory. I didn't. Like Joel Sherman reported it before, and then I reacted to Joel reporting that. Now I had heard it from a bunch of people, but what I had heard was that other teams wrote an official like request to look into look into them wearing devices. So like I have never once heard that they definitely 100% wore them. All I've heard is that it was a concern from other teams enough that they heard rumblings or thought of it that multiple teams wrote into the league saying, "Can you look into this?"
I appreciate you doing this, but I got to ask, do you still think they did? Do you still think they used the buzzers in just deep down?
They did. I know they did something besides banging.
Maybe that's a better way to put it. Yeah.
When the banging stopped, they found a new relay system. You have to be crazy to think they just were like, we're done.
Yeah. No, again, it becomes hard to argue sometimes. But moving on, I appreciate you being open about that, and because I know that was a whole whirlwind that you became a part of. But moving on to a lighter note here, do you have a video of yours that stands out as like, man, I think that's one of my favorites, or a breakdown that you did that you thought you killed it?
No, I've done like 500, so a lot of the ones I'd say like Savages would be more.
Yeah.
The content itself was there that made it so good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And when I do all these like college ones or non-baseball ones or even baseball ones, like sometimes I make them and I kind of forget about them. And then people will be like, I did a hockey one. I'm like, this is the third time you covered this guy. How do you still not know who he is? And I'm like, oh dude, like people request it. And then I do like a 3-hour deep dive into what happened, make sure I don't sound really dumb when I'm explaining to other people what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then unless it's really memorable, like I kind of forget. So I could try and think, but no, I mean, the Ramon Laureano one was fun.
The fight last year.
Yeah. Because I know that also went to the league office and they used it in like suspension for Citron or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
No, I would have to rack my brain to think of one, but not off the top of my head.
A favorite one of mine, it was not a major league one. It was that Louisville pitcher who looked like a creative player on MLB The Show with the hair that was just trying to punk this Vanderbilt team. And you got, again, and your attention to detail is so good because you got Kumar Rocker, who I think he'd just thrown no-hitter against Duke, but it was before he was the name he is now.
Yeah.
You got him saying something that made me laugh my ass off when
he said, I can swear on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
He said, bitch ass hoe.
Right. That made me
and
laugh.
And then Pitching Ninja interviewed him
and
asked him about the video. And Kumar was like, I said that. That's what I said.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's,
I didn't know that was who he was at the time or anything.
No, me neither. It took, I watched it about 4 months ago and I went, that's Kumar Rocker. That's a guy who hopefully falls to the Tigers at 3, but I doubt it. You were on Trevor Bauer's YouTube page a few months ago. It was last season, and he did a kind of a series of questions with famous baseball personalities. And they asked, what's one thing you could fix about the game of baseball? And you had an original answer. And you said, I'm tired of announcers that hate the sport of baseball. And I processed that. I'm like, you know what? He's right. Because I've never watched a Sunday night football game and listened to Chris Collinsworth rip the NFL. Why do you think that? Or
get upset about like, oh, you know what the Phillies announcer did yesterday or Sunday? And I wanted to tweet this out, but I don't want to become the person who hates announcers.
Right, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The first pitch of the spring training game, and I get it, spring training. It's one pitch, one out. And the Phillies announcers kind of tongue in cheek were like, oh, there you go. I like that pace. Let's keep that going. And I'm like, oh my God, like one pitch in and you guys are like, your main focus is how quick can this end? And that's spring training. So I get it, but that's how Sunday Night Baseball is. Like if a Sunday Night Baseball game goes into extra innings, the announcers are like dreading it.
Yeah. Why do you think that problem persists in baseball and not any other sport?
Well, I don't think a lot of, I don't want to put it. I think that baseball is a grind for everyone.
True.
I think that there's some times where they think it's like high school, cooler to come off like a little more negative or deprecating in a way. And enthusiasm is lame when it couldn't be any less true. Enthusiasm will always be the most interesting and genuine thing. You can find someone on YouTube who has a stamp collection and you'll find yourself listening to it for 2 minutes because they're so enthusiastic about it. But there is that hallway mentality of like, oh, another inning. I can't believe this. And then I think that there's a lot of people that want to go into broadcasting and love sports, but don't love baseball, but that's where they've landed.
Yeah. And I get that. And there are obviously, and I know you're not saying this, there's great, announcers out there for local teams. And I think Jason, obviously, of course. And like Jason Benetti, I think is phenomenal with the White Sox. I think you guys have a special crew. I think what Michael Kay and Paul O'Neill do, I think they're always really good. Michael Kay's as veteran as it gets, but it's a weird thing where people have told me like, man, even in videos of yours that I hate, the one thing that carries over is passion. And I think the word you use is enthusiasm. I think that, especially in baseball where you see these people 162 times a year, just being able to get to kind of know the announcers and feel that energy, it becomes infectious. And I thought that was a powerful answer that you gave. A few more questions here. You've been on this amazing run. You started, I believe, in 2017 with the Yankees videos. What's been the most surreal moment for you? What's been the most pinch me, I must be dreaming moment? I can't believe that this is happening since this whole run started.
Well, it was winter meetings after the 2018 season. So in between 18 and 19 and myself and Jake were there. And I think maybe BBD, Big Baby David, our producer, had come with us as a real low, hey, we need help. If you want to come be part of this, come, blah, blah, and showed up. We had maybe our first time or second time meeting him in person. But anyways, 3 of us sitting there. We're dressed in suits, uncomfortable because we're sitting next to the Yes Network. And in the media place. We're so nervous and shy, and we don't want to make anyone mad. We don't want to go to the scrums because we've never been in the scrums with the media, but we're like, hey, Michael, can you do an interview with us? Or, hey, Brian Hoke, being as respectful, quiet, blah, blah, blah. We're sitting right next to the Yankees Yes Network hot stove interview section. And they're like, yeah, Cashman's coming by and he's going to get interviewed. So we're sitting there and we're like on the side, and then Cashman's on the little stage for the TV on the little chairs, and we're just watching. And he turns and he looks at me and he says, just nods at me. I'm like, what? So I look at Jake, I turn to Jake and I'm like, yo, I think Cashman just nodded at me. And he's like, I can't hear you. Jake can't hear anything. So I text him. I'm like, Cashman just made eye contact and nodded at me. And Jake's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you're probably not you. And we're like, whatever. It was like wild. And then after Cashman was done being on the Yes Network show, as he walked off the podium, he pointed at me and he said, I'm really happy to see you here, and walked away. And I was like, what? Like, how my face, like I can recognize my voice or something, like my face, like how does he recognize my face? And why would he go out of his way to like say that? But and then I met him later on in the lobby and he was like, yeah, I listened to the show. You guys do a good job. And I've since gone on to talk to him a bunch, and he's publicly like I said, like talked about me or whatever. But that was the first moment where I was like, shocked. Like, what? Like I was honestly like, Jake, you saw that, right? You saw he was looking at me, right? Like, that was weird. Why am I on his radar? So that was cool.
Does it make the job easier or harder knowing that you have that kind of attention now? I mean, we're talking about one of the great GMs in baseball over the last 50 years. I mean, does it make it tougher?
No, easier. More fun,
Yeah.
It's like a running joke now. Like, hey, Cashman, whenever, like,
Right.
he does listen to some episodes. Like, he listens to a lot of podcasts on his drive. So every now and then we just throw like, hey, Cashman, if you're listening, blah, blah, blah.
Two more for you. One thing I love about you is your authenticity. And last year, Trevor Bauer posted a thing of you and Clevenger and Fuzzy talking, and he brought up the guy in Detroit who was,
Yes.
and he was talking, and Trevor asked you, have you seen this guy? And you said, no, the team's been so bad, I haven't really seen much. And I had people sending that to me being like, can you believe this? He hasn't watched the Tigers. And I said, no, he's a smart man. I don't blame him. But I
knew who you were.
No, I know. And that was a very, very special moment. I appreciate that. But I just, it is a Tigers question, because when you're in the midst of things in Detroit, I think sometimes, and I am guilty of this as anybody, you have a tendency to be a bit negative. But as an outsider, in the little bit that you've seen, what is your kind of assessment of where they're at in terms of their rebuild right now?
Yeah, well, Cabrera's contract looks pretty bad still.
That is correct.
It goes up next year, right?
Yeah, they got him for 3 more years. So,
and then the White Sox window is just opening, as the Twins regular season window remains open, and the postseason is like, a
Right.
distant farce.
Fever
But
dream.
where are the Tigers right now? Like, I'm excited to see. Last year was excited to see if they got a full 162, if they could flip any of those guys they brought over on 1-year deals. And then I think they kind of got taken away from them. It's all about the pitching, right? And,
Yeah.
and then I'm so skeptical on young pitching. So I don't even get excited for it when it's like Yankees young pitching. Like I wouldn't lock a guy in as a good pitcher until he's done it like 2 full seasons in a row.
Mhm.
Even then, I don't know. And then you guys have had Fulmer and Boyd, and so you've seen it.
Yes,
You've
correct.
seen that. If there's any team that should be super skeptical of young pitching, it should be Tigers fans. But everyone seems pretty excited, and I mean that's exciting. So I don't know. I mean, I think that you're on the start of the ascent,
Right.
but it's been slower.
Right. That's the counter argument, is like, the fact is it's year 5 and they're just starting the ascent. And I'm with you about the pitching. I mean, I think that starting pitching, unless you're the Cleveland Indians, starting pitching is very difficult to develop, because starting pitchers are fragile, and they have this 3-headed monster with Mize, Manning, and Skubal. And I've said probably one of these guys will be a stud. One of them will probably be good for a few years and maybe get injured, and one of them won't pan out. And they did do a better job over the last year with getting Torkelson and getting Riley Green of adding some position players. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you, and I've been skeptical about it from the beginning. And
they have to trade one of those guys.
Yeah. And I mean, they've had the opportunity. I talked about this with Foolish Baseball, and I've said it on this podcast a million times. They had the opportunity with Fulmer and didn't pull the string. They had the opportunity with Boyd and didn't pull the string. And Boyd was, we had a 6-something ERA last year. I think he's better than that, but still, I mean, you trade contracts, not players. And the value has gone down in both those guys. Fulmer is going to be coming out of the bullpen this year because as a starter in spring training and last year as well, he was getting rocked. But my last question for you is if 2017 Jimmy O'Brien and 2021 Jimmy O'Brien could sit down for 1 minute and have a conversation, what's the one piece of advice that current you would give to that version of you?
Man, I mean, just to keep going or just to do it. Like, I would just say like, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's so different. I was living at my girlfriend's parents' house. I made no money, and I would get depressed every other week because I was like, how the hell am I gonna like make money? I mean, I was a videographer for an event company, and it was ditch all my hobbies and all my stuff that I would like doing creative wise, and just go at it for like a corporate company and do like in-house safety videos. That was like my path, and it sucked. So I mean, now like I have 2 dogs, I have a wife, a company. Like it's been the most wildest even 2 years, because like up until 2019 I was making zero money. I was living off $1,000 a month. That's what we paid ourselves. But I mean, I wouldn't even I think the cliche answer is like it's gonna work, but I don't think I'd tell myself that, because then I don't think I would have stayed working as hard as I did. And I still don't. It's still not final. A lot of small companies come and go. So that's still, but I mean, I think I'd let it lie. You know what I mean? Like, I think I believed in myself and just enough. And then I was thankful for that opportunity. In 2019, I got like a little carried away because our style was kill them with content. And we did like 40 shows a week. It's not a joke. We did 40 shows a week. Of tons of different things and tons of different styles. And I was producing all of them and editing all of them and doing social media for all of them and doing our merch store. And if the only thing I'd say is, only advice I would do is like ditch shows earlier that like aren't working and you don't see them working, but you're just doing them to do them. Yeah. Because I did get a little too wrapped up in 2019 where my social life and my relationship was like in a bad spot. But then again, that got me here. So it's difficult. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're an inspiration to me, and I think what you've done has made the game so much more fun. I tried to ask you questions you haven't been asked a million times, so I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you sticking with it. Thank you so much for joining us, man, and enjoy this season.
I will. Any movies? You've been high on any movies lately?
I haven't been to the theater in a long time, but I'm gonna watch Godzilla versus Kong probably on HBO Max this week and see what I feel about it. So
you like the artsy ones, right?
I try to. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anything.
Okay. I watched Bad Trip with Eric Andre yesterday, and it was funnier than I thought it was going to be.
I like Eric Andre a lot, so that's not a shocker to me. But I appreciate you keeping in touch with that man. Yeah, you're the best. Thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.